The Velorian tribunal chamber smelled of ozone and something bitter, like burnt copper mixed with fear. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the center of the crystalline floor, her wrists bound by energy shackles that hummed against her skin, watching the alien judges confer in their clicking, whistling language. This was her third surrender in 18 months. The lead judge, a tall, mantis-like creature with compound eyes that reflected her image 1,000 times, leaned forward. "Commander Chen," it said through a translator node embedded in the chamber walls, "you are charged with cowardice in the face of combat. You surrendered the U.S. Harbinger without firing a single shot. You surrendered the U.S. Defiant after only minor damage. And now, the U.S. Meridian. Explain yourself." Sarah kept her spine straight, her eyes fixed on a point just above the judge's head. 23 years in the United Earth Navy. Decorated. Respected. And now this. Standing trial before an allied species that couldn't understand why she kept giving up. "My crew," she said. "I surrendered to protect my crew." A ripple of clicking sounds moved through the chamber. Confusion. Disgust, maybe. "Your crew are soldiers," the judge said. "They signed contracts. They accepted death. They have families." Silence. The kind that pressed against eardrums. A smaller figure emerged from the shadows behind the tribunal, a Velorian youth, barely 4 feet tall, with softer features and eyes that hadn't yet hardened into the compound complexity of adulthood. It carried a data tablet and moved with careful, precise steps. "The human speaks of genetic bonds," the young one said, voice high and clear. "Offspring, pairmates, the connections that—" "Silence, Keth," the lead judge snapped. "You are here to observe, not participate." Keth's antennae flattened against its skull, a gesture Sarah had learned meant shame. The young Velorian stepped back into the shadows, but not before Sarah caught something in those not-quite-calm eyes. Curiosity. The tribunal deliberated for 3 hours. Sarah stood the entire time, her legs aching, her mind wandering to the 47 crew members she'd saved by dropping her weapons and raising her hands. Ensign Rodriguez, who had a daughter starting school this year. Lieutenant Park, whose wife was pregnant with twins. Chief Martinez, who sent half his paycheck home to his mother. They had families. It was that simple. "Commander Chen," the lead judge finally announced, "the tribunal finds you complicated. Not guilty. Not innocent. Complicated. You will be assigned a Velorian companion," the judge continued. "A cultural liaison who will help us understand this family concept you speak of. You will return to active duty, but you will not be given command until we determine whether your surrenders are cowardice or something else entirely." Sarah's jaw tightened. A babysitter. They were giving her a babysitter. "The companion Keth will accompany you." The young Velorian stepped forward again, data tablet clutched to its chest, antennae perked with what Sarah now recognized as barely contained excitement. "I'm honored to serve," Keth said, and bowed. Sarah looked at the small alien, barely more than a child by Velorian standards, and felt the weight of another responsibility settling onto her shoulders. Another person without a family to protect them. Wonderful. The UE's Thornfield was a patrol vessel, small and fast, designed for reconnaissance rather than combat. Sarah had been assigned as executive officer, close enough to command to be useful, far enough to be watched. And Keth followed her everywhere like a pale shadow, asking questions. So many questions. Why does Chief Martinez keep a photograph inside his helmet? Why did Lieutenant Park cry when she received that transmission? Sarah answered when she could, deflected when she couldn't, and tried to ignore the way the crew looked at her, some with pity, some with suspicion, all with uncertainty. 2 weeks into their patrol, they received a distress signal. "Civilian transport," the communications officer reported. "Kalari, vessel. They've hit a debris field. Hull breach in progress." Captain Morrison, a heavy-set man with gray at his temples and doubt in his eyes, turned to Sarah. "Recommendations, Commander?" The Kalari were neutral in the ongoing conflict. Not allies. Not enemies. Just people trying to survive in a galaxy that had too many wars and not enough safe harbors. "We helped them," Sarah said. "That's not our mission. There are children on that ship." Sarah had already pulled up the transport's manifest. 43 passengers, 17 of them under the age of 10. Morrison hesitated. Keth, standing in its designated observation corner, leaned forward with obvious interest. "Captain," Sarah said, lowering her voice, "they have families waiting for them somewhere." Something shifted in Morrison's expression, a crack in the professional mask. "Helm, alter course. Let's go save some civilians." The rescue took 6 hours. Sarah coordinated the evacuation teams, organized the medical response, and personally carried a Kalari child, small, gray-skinned, terrified, from a collapsing section of the transport to the safety of the Thornfield's cargo bay. The child's mother wept when she took her daughter back. No translator was needed for the gratitude in her eyes. Later, Sarah found Keth in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. "You risked the ship," Keth said without turning. "The mission, your career, again." "Yes, for strangers, for people." Keth's antennae twitched, a gesture Sarah had learned to read as deep thought. "On Veloria we do not have families, not as you describe them. We are hatched in communal centers, raised by the collective. No individual bonds." Sarah moved to stand beside the small alien. "That sounds lonely." "I did not know it was lonely," Keth said quietly, "until I watched that mother hold her child." They stood in silence for a long moment, watching distant suns burn against the void. "Commander Chen, yes? Why did you carry that child yourself? You could have ordered someone else." Sarah thought about it. Really thought. Because she was scared. And sometimes when you're scared, you need someone to hold you. Someone who makes you feel like you matter. Keth's eyes, still simple, still young, still achingly alone, turned to meet hers. "I have never felt like I mattered." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She looked at this alien child, assigned to spy on her, to judge her, to report her weaknesses back to the tribunal, and she saw something she recognized. A kid without a family. "Well," Sarah said, and surprised herself by meaning it, "you matter to me." 3 months passed. 3 months of patrols, minor skirmishes, and Keth's endless questions slowly transforming into something else. Conversations. Real ones. About fear and duty, and what it meant to belong somewhere. Then the Kraveks came. The Kraveks were scavengers, pirates, opportunists who preyed on the weak and ran from the strong. The Thornfield should have been too strong for them. But there were 5 Kraveks raiders, and the Thornfield was alone. And Captain Morrison took a plasma bolt through the chest 30 seconds into the engagement. Sarah assumed command. "All hands, this is Commander Chen. Prepare for combat maneuvers." The battle was brutal. The Thornfield was outgunned, outmaneuvered, taking hit after hit. Engineering reported fires. Medical reported casualties. The helm reported that 2 more raiders were closing in. "Commander," the tactical officer said, "we can't win this." Sarah knew. God, she knew. She looked at the faces around her, scared, determined, trusting her to save them, and felt the familiar weight of impossible choices. Open a channel to the Kraveks flagship. "Commander, do it." The channel opened. A Kraveks face, scarred, brutal, grinning, filled the screen. "You wish to surrender, human? I wish to negotiate. You want our cargo, our weapons. Take them, but you let my crew go." The Kraveks commander laughed. "Your crew are worth more as slaves than your cargo is worth as goods. Then I'll throw in myself. A United Earth commander. Think of the ransom." Silence on the bridge. Sarah felt every eye on her, felt the weight of what she was offering. "Commander, no." Lieutenant Park started. "That's an order, Lieutenant." But before the Kraveks could respond, an alarm blared. A new contact was emerging from subspace, a Velorian battlecruiser, heavily armed, powering weapons. And on the Thornfield's bridge, Keth stood at the communication station, antennae flared, speaking rapidly in its native language. "What did you do?" Sarah demanded. Keth's translator rendered its next words with perfect clarity. I called my people. I told them my companion was in danger. The Kraveks ran. Of course they ran. A single Velorian cruiser was worth 20 of their raiders. In the aftermath, as the wounded were treated and the dead were counted, and the Thornfield limped toward the nearest starbase, Sarah found Keth in her quarters. The small alien was trembling. I broke protocol, Keth whispered. I used emergency channels without authorization. I will be recalled. Punished. Sarah crossed the room and did something she'd never done before. She pulled Keth into her arms, holding the small alien against her chest. Keth went rigid, then slowly, impossibly, relaxed. You saved my crew, Sarah said. You saved me. You were going to sacrifice yourself, Keth said, voice muffled against her uniform. For them, for people who are not even your genetic offspring. They're my family, Sarah said. And so are you. Keth made a sound, something between a chirp and a sob, and held on tighter. The Velorian tribunal reconvened 6 months later. Same chamber. Same judges. Same bitter ozone smell. But this time, Sarah wasn't alone. Keth stood beside her, no longer in the shadows, no longer silent. And behind them, filling the observation gallery, stood the crew of the Thornfield, Lieutenant Park, Chief Martinez, Ensign Rodriguez, and 40 others who had come to speak. We are here to evaluate Commander Chen's fitness for command, the lead judge announced, and to address the unauthorized actions of companion Keth. If I may speak, Keth said, and didn't wait for permission. I have spent 9 months studying humans, studying Commander Chen, and I have reached a conclusion. The judge's compound eyes glittered. Proceed. You asked why she keeps surrendering, why she values her crew above victory, above glory, above her own career. Keth's voice grew stronger. It is because humans have discovered something we have not. They have learned that strength is not measured in battles won or enemies destroyed. It is measured in the bonds you forge, the people you protect, the love you choose to give. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Commander Chen surrenders because she understands that some things are worth more than winning. Her crew has families, parents, children, partners who wait for them, who need them, who would be destroyed by their loss. She sees this. She honors this. And she will sacrifice anything, her command, her freedom, her life, to preserve it. Keth turned to face Sarah, and something had changed in those eyes. They were beginning to facet, the first signs of adulthood approaching, but beneath the physical change was something deeper. I never had a family, Keth said. I was hatched alone, raised by systems, taught to observe, but never to connect. And then I met Commander Chen. She did not have to care about me. I was assigned to spy on her, to judge her, to report her weaknesses. But she chose to make me matter, to protect me, to teach me that I was worthy of love. Keth's voice cracked. That is what family means. It is not genetics. It is not obligation. It is the choice to hold someone close when you could walk away. It is the courage to surrender your own safety for another's survival. It is what humans do better than any species I have ever encountered. The chamber was silent. Even the judges seemed frozen. I request, Keth said formally, that Commander Chen be restored to full command. And I request that I be allowed to remain as her permanent liaison. Not as an observer. Not as an observer. Keth looked at Sarah. As family. The lead judge conferred with the others. Minutes passed. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. Finally, the judge spoke. The tribunal acknowledges that we have misunderstood. Commander Chen, you are restored to command, effective immediately. A new vessel will be assigned to you. A pause, and Companion Keth's request is granted. Sarah exhaled. The crew behind her erupted in cheers. But she barely heard them. She was looking at Keth, this strange, brilliant, lonely child who had grown into something more, who had fought for her when she couldn't fight for herself. Hey, Sarah said, kneeling to meet Keth's eyes. You didn't have to do that. You could have gotten in serious trouble. You have surrendered 3 times to save people you love, Keth said. I simply surrendered once to save you. Sarah laughed. A wet, broken sound. That's not how surrender works. Then teach me, Keth said. That is what family does, yes? They teach each other. They grow together. They stay. Sarah pulled Keth close again, and this time the small alien hugged back without hesitation. Yeah, Sarah whispered. They stay. Behind them, Lieutenant Park wiped her eyes. Chief Martinez pretended something was in his eye. Ensign Rodriguez openly sobbed. And somewhere in the vast, cold universe, a human who kept surrendering and an alien who had never known love walked out of the tribunal chamber together. A commander and her companion. A family, forged in the spaces between stars.